So as we always do, we'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the various lands where we gather across Queensland. Laurie's just joined us from Outdoors New South Wales ACT, and Julie's joined us from California. So it's lovely to see you all. We pay respect to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the important roles that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples play on the land, sky and waterways used for outdoor activities, and First Nations peoples right across the world. I'm in Brisbane, or Meanjin, as it has been known, on Yagara country, which is a place of the Jagera and Turrbal peoples. We also acknowledge the funding provided by the Queensland Government, which supports outdoor activities right across our state, and the work that different government departments and the ministers do and have done about outdoor activities, which includes our colleagues at Sport and Recreation in the Department of Tourism, Innovation and Sport. So welcome to another session of Coffee and Conversation. As you may know, my name's Dom Courtney. I'm the Executive Officer of Outdoors Queensland. Our Marketing and Communications Manager, Charlie Collins, is my co-host for today's session. So Mark Squires, my regular co-pilot, he's unavailable today, so Charlie's stepped in to give me a hand, which is great. Thank you, Charlie. I'd like to welcome everyone, yeah, it's great to have you join us. And as I said before, the recordings will be available on the website. We've only got a bit of a smaller group, so happy to have conversations as we go along, or you can always use the chat session. This is our 22nd scheduled episode of Coffee and Conversation for 2021, and I don't know how, but somehow we've made it into November already. I was saying to Charlie the other day, I'm pretty sure 2022 is still about 6 months away. So in my head, I'm struggling with this transition to November, and I'm pretty sure that all that trick-or-treating that seemed to go on last week was actually about 3 months early. But anyway, I can get over that and we'll move on. A bit of an agenda for today. I'd like to give you a bit of an update on the awards, inside the Outhouse, some grant stuff that's available and maybe of varying interest, and then a few other topics. But if you have anything you want to add, yeah, please just say so. So first off, the Outdoors Queensland Awards presentation, which we held last Friday, the 29th of October. It was a really great evening. We held it as an online session, which we did last year for the first time. The recording's on our website. Big congratulations to all the winners and finalists for their efforts, which are all listed on our website. The winners of the 9 awards presented, I actually would like to go through them just briefly, give them a mention. The Brisbane City Council Award for Outstanding Achievement of an Organisation went to Scouts Queensland, so congratulations to the Scouts. Glenn Thomas took out the Queensland Government Award for Outstanding Achievement of an Individual. So Glenn's an academic at University of Sunshine Coast. The Queensland Government Encouraging Participation Award went to Two Bent Rods, who are a program that are aimed at encouraging fishing for families, which was a really good program. They took that one out. The AQIA Workforce Development Award, you can see I'm struggling to put the sponsors' names in. I'm trying to do the right thing by our sponsors. That was taken out by Queensland Police Service for a really good program that's run up in the Bundaberg region by Mark Cartner, which is called Walk of Life, and it includes, it's pretty cool, it includes the police service. Mark's a school-based police officer, but it also has an RTO involved, Dave Payne from Paramount, and then also Wild Projects, who is a non-for-profit. So it's a bit of a collaboration between business, government, and not-for-profit, which is awesome to see. And they took out that one for the training work that they've been doing with all those young people, which is terrific. Lachlan Wright won the K2 Basecamp Young Achiever Award. Lachlan's a young scout, so Scouts had a big night last Friday, and congratulations to Lachlan. And the Brisbane City Council Outdoor Event Award went to Mount Barney Lodge for the Scenic Rim Adventure Festival, which was a terrific event run earlier in the year Yeah, which is great that Mount Barney took out that one. The Nature Play Queensland Nature Play Education Award went to Country Kids Childcare. Naturally Fun is the name of their program, so that's great to see. Just some really good work that's going on in that space. And the Queensland Government Award for Outdoor Places and Spaces, Emu Gully Adventure Education Group won that one. So they're an outdoor ed centre, which is all themed around Anzac values and that sort of thing. So it's a really interesting space that they've created as an outdoor ed space. And last but not least, the Queensland Government Nature Play Community Award went to the Little Pocket, which is another wonderful nature play space, which actually is in, I think it's Beachmont in the Gold Coast hinterland, and they're working on a bit of community resilience, and they've sort of done a lot of work since the bushfires that went through there in 2019, 2020. So yeah, some really great work and really good stories in the nominations, and it was awesome to hear about what the stories of what the finalists and the winners have been achieving. So and a big thanks obviously to our sponsors in all of that, and that made it possible, but also the crew from Element Photo and Video Productions, who did a lot of work to actually make it happen. So yeah, it was great. So you just have to put your thinking caps on about nominations for 2022, which will happen halfway through next year. We'll start spruiking that and look forward to some more terrific stories. And Charlie's just shared the link there to the webpage. Thanks, Charlie. A few other things. I got inside the Outhouse there. I don't think we've got David on this call. He was on Laurie's call earlier, and I know he was good there. But they've just completed a run of 3 consecutive weeks, and I'm not sure if they've got. I think their next session might be on the 3rd. They're normally first and third Monday of each month. I think their next one will be the 3rd Monday of November, but I'm not 100% sure on that because they've sort of changed their program a little bit. But yeah, certainly if you get a chance, check out Inside the Outhouse. They're really valuable sort of networking and sharing of ideas. The Active Game Day Projects grant. This one, Gavin, I don't know if you've had a look at it, or probably Peter as well. It's actually about field of play infrastructure projects to enhance participation opportunities at local community levels. The key piece of this one is the application's actually closed today. So 5 o'clock, you've got all of 5 3/4 hours to get an application in. So I don't know if you had a look at that one, but I just wanted to flag that it does close today. So there's that one. And the other one there, which is actually it's about businesses, the COVID business support grants, but it also includes not-for-profit organisations, and it does include sole traders. They expanded the eligibility for that one. So it's all about businesses that are impacted by the lockdown, which Laurie will shake her head at, that we had for several days back in August, but also the businesses that are affected by the border disruptions. So particularly, they've got I think there's a definition of the border business zone, and so businesses in that area can get support for that, financial support. I think it closes the 16th of November for businesses with staff and the 30th of November for sole traders, but check eligibility on that one. But they have said that everyone who is eligible who applies will be successful. So a bit of an effort. Check eligibility if you are eligible, and you can show that you've been impacted by that lockdown. They have been very clear about that, but you have to get in before the closing date. So, and again, Charlie's added some links in the chat. I've spoken before about the bushfire and severe weather conditions guidance note. That's published by the Outdoor Council Australia. Just a reminder more than anything, it's about planning for how we would react to severe weather in the outdoor sector. So I just wanted to flag that that's there. It's available for anyone to use. The good people at Outdoors New South Wales and ACT updated it earlier this year. So thanks to Laurie and her team for that. And it's it's a really good resource, and I just wanted to flag it. We've had some fairly severe storms in different parts of Queensland in the last few weeks, so certainly worth a look at that one, particularly if you're doing some reviews of your operating plans and how you do that. So yeah, if I'm ripping through these too quickly, just say so. But yeah, if there's any queries about it, happy to take them. So I'm not sure if this one's going to be relevant to anyone here, but you can always tell a friend. The Young Tourism Leaders nominations. This is about young people who are active in the tourism industry and being able to encourage others to work in that industry. And it's particularly valuable, I think, for us in the context of ecotourism and outdoor activities, of having people working in that space. So it's a government program. The nominations, I think they close next Monday. So if you know anyone, particularly in the tourism space, who is an existing young leader, I'm not sure how they define young. Gavin, I'm not sure if where that cutoff is, if you're interested, but yeah, if you know someone who is eligible for that one that you're thinking of that stands out as a tourism, young tourism operator who might be interested, yeah, I think it's worth a look. So young at heart, yeah, I think so, Laurie. That would cover everyone on the call. So yeah, everyone's eligible, I think. But yeah, I mean, the thing with, there's a lot of work going on in the tourism space, and QTIC, who are the Queensland Tourism Industry Council, the peak body for tourism as a whole, they've been doing a lot of work in the mentoring space in that area as well. So there's a fair bit going on in that, which is really positive. Obviously, particularly the outdoor tourism world, or the tourism world in general's been severely affected by the COVID crisis, and also the bushfires that we should not forget about, particularly while COP26 is going on in Glasgow, which seems a long way away from all our bushfires from the last couple of years, but certainly worth keeping that in the back of your mind. So I just wanted to flag that tourism leaders program is there and available if you know anyone who might be interested. Yeah, but they'll have to get in quickly. It's actually only a website which is pretty simple to fill out. So he says, without having done it, I had a look at it. I don't know whether there's sneaky questions once you get further in. There could be, but you'll never know if you don't have a look. So that's about it from there. Before we get into the world of COVID restrictions update, does anyone have any other topics you wanted to talk about? I'm happy to, Kim, if you wanted to talk about, you know, some of the Facebook group you talked about it during Laurie's session, I'm more than happy to I think, what is it? Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So even though Laurie's here, we can still go through some of that topic.
Just call it rip off and duplicate, Dom. Saves time.
Hey, that's what you did last year when we started this session. I'll just remind you of that, by the way.
That's so true.
Yeah. And our friends in Outdoors Vic even stole Live Life Outdoors from Outdoors Queensland about 6 years ago, and I keep reminding them of that, and that's an interesting conversation as well. They just borrowed it and it stuck, so that's all right. It's collaboration. So
we share a lot.
Yeah, we do share. Yeah. Kim, did you want to say anything about the Facebook group that you've got going?
I'd love to. I don't want to bore everyone who just heard about it last session, but there's a few new faces: Charlie and Gavin, Julie, and Danny, I think. Yeah, so I have started a Facebook group for mums, primary caregivers, and their allies in the outdoor industry. Just saw that there wasn't anything going. I had a little look around and asked a few questions on public forums, and a little platform or network for Australia doesn't exist yet at the moment. So saw a gap and thought, let's make that happen. That's important. Self-interested because I've become a mum and I work in the outdoor industry, but also talking to friends and other people. Yeah, there's a lot of interest for a bit more advocacy and mentorship and support. So yeah, if you know of anyone, please invite them to the group. I'm going to change the name today. Currently, it's Mums in the Outdoor Industry, but I'd like it to reflect a more inclusive audience. So it'll be a bit of a mouthful, but mums, primary caregivers and their allies in the outdoor industry. and
where are you based, Kim?
So
In Brisbane?
Yeah, well, currently I'm up in 1770, Grand Country on holidays.
Lovely.
But normally Mount Nebo, that's Jinnaburra land. Yeah.
Okay.
Down near Brisbane.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the idea is to start with the group as a place, and I've written some notes here, to share information, guidance, advocacy and support, a place where people can share recommendations of employers that offer secure sort of maternity leave, flexible return to work options, support for breastfeeding mothers while in the field or other career growth. So a place to list tips for that, because they're hot pretty. A place where we can get together and advocate for more secure, fair and flexible working conditions, and just a place for educating and offering information for employers as well on how they can best support their mums and primary caregivers in the industry. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
It sounds wonderful, Kim. Did you have a link that you could share that we could promote to our relevant?
Yeah.
I can. I'm not very technologically. I'll work on it. I'll share it.
No worries. If you have it, just pop it in the chat, but I'm sure we can find it by searching on Facebook, so that's fine. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great, Kim. And if you want to like even send it through to us later through email or whatever, if you just let us know, and we'd be more than happy to share that. We can add it to the to what we promote too, because it is a part of what we want to do. You know, as far as advocating for the sector as a whole and making our workplaces, and that includes volunteers as well. I always say, anyone who thinks that volunteers aren't workers has never done it. So it's paid and volunteer workers, and making the outdoors more inclusive of all people and making it a more attractive place to be and to work. And I think even just sharing that information is a huge step to people's different experiences. So yeah, thank you for that, and it's great to see that it's taking off. I think yeah, it's nice to have an inclusive name, but it's also good to have it, you know, snappy and yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thank you for that, and welcome, David. I saw you just popped on, mate. Thanks for joining us. It's like the old crew's back together again in some parts, but yeah. Dave, I mentioned Inside the Outhouse earlier, and you guys have just had a 3-week consecutive run. Is the next session on the 3rd Monday?
It depends. Hi everybody, sorry I'm late. Meeting with the boss always runs over on a Friday morning. Yeah, last 3 weeks Inside the Outhouse have covered a couple of topics, so you might want to reach out and have a look. 3 weeks ago we talked to the Chief Executive Officer at the AEE about their upcoming conference. Bit of a plug there for them. That occurs from next Thursday evening, Friday morning in the States. I'll put some links in the chat if you're interested. And then we talked to John Casman from wholesomefoodscalculator.com. They're an amazing online company that does catering, as in organizing your catering systems for outdoor rec or outdoor education systems online through a portal that does things like accounting for dietaries and dietary substitutions, generates menus, menu plans, and puts it all into an Excel spreadsheet that you can then send to the person who's going out shopping, or send it on to Coles, or as a PDF. Amazing system. Have a look at that video. And then one that I'm finally getting together this afternoon is we had Dr. Anita Pryor come and talk to us about ABAT in a general sense, and about pathways in the adventure therapy space, but also was doing a promotion about the I guess it's already come and gone now, the national symposium that happened over the last 2 days out of Adelaide via Zoom. So that video will be up later this afternoon. And to answer your question more directly, Dom, yes, on the 22nd or 15th, I think we might be having a review of the AEE conference. Both myself and Pete are going to be in the conference area till all hours. So we might have a discussion then, but we will be announcing a special guest on the 29th, I think, which is out of sequence. But again, talking about, there's been a recent poll in social media about wages and conditions. Name escapes me of the gentleman who's been running that. He's going to come in and talk about the results of that poll about the outdoor sector. So that should be an interesting thing. I think that's definitely the 29th. So yeah, 29th, he's locked in for that. I'll put his name and details in the link, and the poll that he's currently running, trying to gather as much information about the sector as possible. Thanks very much.
Perfect. Thanks, Dave. All righty. So moving right along in the world of COVID restrictions, and I'm very aware that we're in a very fortunate position particularly compared to some other states. But yeah, so our roadmap that the government's got hasn't changed since the 8th of October, which is almost a month and almost a record, I reckon. It's good to see. So the key thing on it is that new normal along the bottom of it. And we do still have the rules about masks, particularly in southeast Queensland. But also the big thing that the government is repeatedly saying is get vaccinated. And that's, they did say just this week we had some cases in Gundawindi, which is partly because of the cross-border situation there, right on the border where the McIntyre River is literally the border, which is right at the southern edge of the town, and then it's New South Wales on the other side. So you have to hold your breath just in case the wind's coming from the south and you get that New South Wales air. But they said they didn't have a lockdown because that area, Gundawindi, is sitting on about 90% vaccinated. So, which is a wonderful effort by obviously the local health workers. So they're one of the highest vaccinated regions in Queensland. And obviously they've done a wonderful job. So that's great. And that actually prevented a lockdown there. So I think it does show what needs to happen as far as keeping that going. So yeah, so I guess that's the other one, the vaccination, as well as all the other requirements that we have in place. This is just purely a reminder for COVID safe, and it should be COVID safe organisations. I think they use businesses, but it applies to non-profit organisations. It applies to businesses. And that the website is called COVID Safe Businesses, so that's why I've used that term. It's got a whole heap of information, but the key part is about the COVID safe checklists, if required, and it's got all the rules there about when it is required and when it isn't. So if you're purely outdoors, you don't need to do a COVID safe checklist. But if you've got any indoor activities as part of your delivery, then you'll need a checklist for that, which then means you've got to have the check-in app, etc. However, so the occupant density requirement, they've updated this, the public health direction. So we're up to number 29 on the restrictions on businesses, activities and undertakings directions. But it has still got that relaxation on the occupant density. That's been there for quite a while. So that's great that that's still in there. Queensland Health has put that in there. So very happy about that. So that specifically says it doesn't apply to primary and secondary school age children from the same group if it's a camp operated by a school, community group or business. So yeah, that's an important exemption that's still in there. And then also in the same direction is the Queensland Health, I guess, recognise the difficulties for using Checkin Queensland app for camps with school-age children. So organisers of camps, sorry, my other phone's ringing, that's terrible. Sorry about that. So if you don't have to use the Checkin app for kids, and that's great, but that's only if it is organised by schools, sporting teams and community groups. So that's just an important thing to consider there. So that direction's still in there as far as the public health direction. Now this one,
Dom, I just reiterate that's actually happening in the field. I was up with grade 5 at QCCC Mapleton. Big shout out to those guys. Did an amazing job with my year 5s this week. And it was only the teachers and myself had to check in. So it was really well organised and very slick.
yeah, so adults definitely need to check in, and that applies to staff as well, like from the centre. So visiting adults, but also any other adults who are on site. And then the other one that is just the kids don't have to, but you've got to have their details stored in another way. Just on the Checkin Queensland app, I don't know if everyone's aware, but there's actually a sneaky little feature now on it that if you've checked into a spot recently, you can click a little button on the homepage. You don't have to scan the code. You can just click it and then use that. So it saves you lining up and actually taking the photo of the QR code. So there's a nice feature that they've just updated on that app. So, and I believe that soon they're going to be adding the ability to store your vaccination certificate on that app as well. So that's going to be another good feature, especially once I assume we're going to get to the point where we're going to have to show those certificates all over the place. You can't just show that you've had a puncture in your arm. You actually need to use the certificate that you get from the MyGov system, I believe. So on to this other one. This is the roadmap that the Queensland government announced for the borders for both domestic travel and international travel. Julie, I didn't put the international travel one on here, but I'm sure you'll be able to check it out. I've got the domestic travel one up. So Julie's in California for those who just joined. So Julie's joined us she wins the prize for joining from the longest distance today. So far.
Thank you.
The prize is in the mail too, Julie.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And Australian Post hasn't been quick lately. Not that I'm criticising.
I've heard.
Yeah.
I've heard.
I'm not critical. They're doing a good job, I think. But yeah, the border bit, the key piece here on this one is why I've highlighted that page, is there's a statement that from 80% of the vaccinated eligible population, there'll be additional public health restrictions applied to unvaccinated people. So we've actually sought advice from Queensland Health through the staff at Sport and Rec about what those additional public health restrictions might be and how it could affect outdoor operators as a whole. And I flagged that although school camps, this is scheduled to come in on the 17th of December. So the 80% one's going to come in on the 17th of November. And then on the 17th of December, they're saying we should hit the 80% mark. And that'll change some of the restrictions in place for travel and the borders. But my concern, I guess, on that one is the 17th of December is literally a week before Christmas. And that's not a great time to be chasing up changes in restrictions for operations like holiday camps and community groups that are running activities. So we've just we've put that in place and asked the question now about what those additional restrictions will be, particularly for organisations that are delivering services to a mix of vaccinated and unvaccinated people. So that's the question of what that's going to look like. And I haven't got an answer to that yet, but as soon as we've got some info to share about that, we'll certainly let people know, because really for a lot of our organisations, they're not really going to have the luxury, I guess, of being able to say, no, I'm only going to provide services to people who are fully vaccinated, particularly those who deal with children a lot. So we're trying to get an answer to that one, and we'll let you know as soon as we know. I think the sooner we get that, the better, as far as people being prepared for what it might mean. And yeah, at the moment, it's just a question that we've thrown out there and hoping to see. The next one's the Education Queensland restrictions. And again, that hasn't changed since the 20th of August, which is another wonderful thing. So this is really about the education departments, their internal planning, but it affects school camps particularly. And state schools can go on camps and excursions at Department of Ed facilities or non-Department of Ed facilities, but you need a COVID safe checklist if you're a non-department facility. So it hasn't changed since August, like I said, since 20th of August, but it says it'll have a scenario 3, which is a local government area or a statewide lockdown. At that point, camps and excursions won't be permitted, which I guess is understandable. That won't be permitted in that local area if it's just a local government lockdown. And then scenario 4 they have in there is if a school's closed down, then obviously students at that school can't go to camp, which again makes sense. Our education department has certainly got to that point. It took a little bit of advocacy in relation to some of that, in relation to school camps. And I know that Laurie's doing a lot of work with New South Wales Education right now, and trying to make sure that school camps can resume sooner rather than later. So, and good luck with all of that, Laurie, and hope it goes well. Any questions on that one? Or it's the same info I've given previously. I just wanted to make sure everyone had it.
Yeah.
Vaccinations, and again, this is a bit of a rehash, but it's an important topic. So the federal government has been very clear about the fact that vaccinations for COVID-19 is voluntary. Like that's everywhere in all their documentations. If you look at the Fair Work Ombudsman's website, which I've got a link to, it's really clear that they're saying it's voluntary, but then the other side of the coin is if you're not fully vaccinated, then it can be, can be extra restrictions on what you can do and where you can go. So, you know, for something as that is said to be voluntary, it's obviously extremely highly encouraged as well. So, but there have been mandatory vaccinations in some areas, for some, particularly some workplaces. WA really came in hard, and I think obviously they're pushing to get people vaccinated. I think it was reported in the media that about 3/4 of their workforce were in the mandatory vaccination status when they came back with all the different categories that required vaccinations to work. So I think that's the piece that's somewhat concerning for operators, whether it's clubs or businesses, about having rules about instructors, guides having to be vaccinated to return to operations. I know New South Wales for teaching, face-to-face teaching, you have to be vaccinated, and then there's others as well. So I guess what we're sort of still waiting on is whether Queensland government will have a mandate on vaccinations at all, and if so, whether it'll apply to all workers, paid and volunteer, in outdoor organisations, which includes school camps. So there's a lot of work still going on that, and it's still a little bit of a state of flux, I think. Does anyone have anything to add on that one?
With regard to the vaccination and mandatory, I think they're waiting for that, what has with the court case with the police officers and the health workers.
Yeah, so there's a bit of that going on as well, because there has been, Queensland Health have instructed all of their staff that they have to be vaccinated if they're in public-facing roles, and some of their staff, I think, have actually been stood down from some of those roles. That kicked in on Monday, just gone on the 1st of November. So that's happening, and I'm sure it'll be strongly reported in the media, but I guess that's about providing a safe workplace as well, is what they're aiming to do, but it's a bit of a can of worms. So I'm
hearing Julie's shock.
No, not shock, but just disappointment. But I encounter the same thing here at the moment. But yeah, I was hoping Queensland was further along.
Our vaccination rates aren't great, Julie.
I know.
There's a bit of complacency, and which is a shame. And it's also,
it's sad.
Yeah, it's quite patchy too. So there's some areas of the state where the vaccination rates are quite high, and then there's other areas where it's quite low, and that's a real worry, particularly when there's vulnerable communities in some of those areas. So I know there's a lot of work going on. They've actually had all the government ministers have been flying all over the state just this week and last week to encourage communities to be vaccinated. They've tried to get leaders in different communities to lead the way on that as well. And they're certainly pushing it really hard. Like our Chief Health Officer, she finished up last week, and her final words were, "Do me a favour and get vaccinated." That was her plea to the Queensland community. She's just become the governor, and I'm sure she'll still have some strong messages about the health of Queensland. But yes, it was certainly interesting that was pretty much her final words as the Chief Health Officer, was about vaccinations from COVID-19. And she's done a lot in the previous, I think she was Chief Health Officer for 16 years, and she did a lot in relation to the health and well-being of Queensland. She said one of her proudest things was the dramatic reduction in smoking in the time that she's been Chief Health Officer. So yeah, that's great. I don't think she's taking all the credit for that achievement, but yeah, it was just nice to see that was, she reflected on that, but then the plea was, please get vaccinated for COVID, which is obviously heartfelt from her point of view. On the vaccinations, there's some really good information on the Fair Work Ombudsman's webpage. So it's national resource. It's really quite comprehensive, and it was updated just this week, which reflects some of the changes nationally. So they've just updated it. There's information on there about when it might be, as it says on the screen there, when it might be lawful and reasonable to require employees to be vaccinated, about how to respond if employees refuse, and information about seeking proof of vaccination from employees, which is a little bit of a tricky situation from a HR point of view as far as requiring medical information from your staff. It is, the information's on their website. It's worth a look, but you do need to look at a lot of that. And they very much say if you're even considering making vaccinations mandatory within your workplace, you probably should seek independent legal advice, which I'm not going to give you, but that's probably the advice. Have a look at that information. It's really comprehensive, and it's worth a look, because I think it's a pretty tricky area, and I know a few different organisations have taken quite large positions on it, with everyone in their organisation needs to be vaccinated. And as Gavin said, there's a couple of court challenges at the moment going on in relation to vaccines. And I guess at the end of the day, it's about what an organisation needs to do to provide a safe workplace for their staff and for their customers, clients, participants. But it's also, I guess, the big questions about the sustainability and the viability of your organisation, and making sure that the decisions you're making are well informed. So yeah, I think that's a key piece of that. Does anyone have any comments on that one, as far as, you know, that can of worms? Not asking you to make any commitments or give any advice to anyone, but just how different organisations might be dealing with it.
I know a couple months ago, before I left Australia, that I had a few members of my bushwalking club come to me suggesting, that we push vaccinations and making walking even mandatory, that the leaders be vaccinated. So it's a fine line. People have rights. Obviously, I get it about vaccinations, or I wouldn't have been allowed out of the country. Simple as that. But even and Gavin, I'm sure you can respect this as just a bushwalking club. We need to be very careful for both types of individuals and how they feel about whether they do or don't get vaccinated.
Yeah, and I think there's a piece there about making sure and we're being inclusive too. Like it's about, it touches on that as well. And realistically, I think a big part of this, and it's been said multiple times, is when we're talking about purely outdoor activities, then it is, you know, less chance of transmission. It's not zero chance. So I guess that's the piece. And even if you are vaccinated, you can transmit the disease. So I think it's just about minimising risks. And I think that's one thing that outdoors people are good at, is risk mitigation and passing on the benefits of our programs to so many people. So I think that's a piece of this, that this shouldn't come as, you know, it's just another piece of the risk puzzle that we've always had to deal with. And a lot of people deal with it really well, and I think we need to remember that. But yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, I think, as far as making sure we can get the balance right. So I just wanted to flag what we're doing. If there's issues, please let us know. That's probably the key thing. If you can let me know if there's new things emerging that we haven't covered in these sessions. We're in regular contact with our colleagues interstate, like Laurie, and also the others from interstate organisations, and that sometimes that can give us a heads up of what's going on in other places. Sometimes we can do the same, and it's sort of making sure we sort of have the full picture, even as there is uncertainty and complexity. I think what's the acronym VUCA is volatility, uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity. When they all combine, that causes significant stress for human beings. And I'm certain we've had a fair bit of that for the last 18 months or more now. I guess one of those things is also about if we can support you in your organisations, please let us know what you might need from us. There's those levels of stress that have affected a lot of people. And I joked earlier about thinking 2022 is still 6 months away, but I'm literally looking forward to a break over Christmas, New Year. And I think I get the impression everyone's pretty tired, and there's that everyone's, been through so much in the last, and it's longer than 18 months because before that we had the bushfires that affected so much of New South Wales, Victoria and areas of Queensland. And it really has been there's a lot of trauma, I think, that's affected so many people right across, even before COVID came along. For some reason, my wife and I decided to watch the ABC TV series called Fires in the last couple of weeks, which was a fairly challenging documentary, or not documentary, TV show. If you get a chance to see that, yeah, it was really well made, but holy mackerel. Probably if you're feeling fragile, it may not be an awesome thing to do at certain times. So it was really interesting the way they've made that. So I don't normally give plugs for TV shows, but because I'd rather you were outside. But that show is terrifically well made, and yeah, I thought it certainly makes you think the whole thing. So yeah, it's definitely worth a look. But I think the expression is brace yourself for some of what they show in that show. So yeah, but yeah, we'll keep working obviously with government departments, particularly Education Queensland, talking about outdoor activity providers, and making sure, we mentioned this in Laurie's session earlier, making sure that outdoor activities and outdoor education is considered by decision makers. That's just such an important thing that we're not just taken for granted. And the work that so many people do to build resilience and improve the health of our communities through the outdoors as an agency, I think that really needs to be more reminders than they possibly have at any time, and not taken for granted. And we're also trying to get a bit of coverage in the media. We've had a little bit of success with that this week. We're running our first Great Getaways Queensland weekend getaway this weekend. So we had a little bit of coverage there. So that's for people 55 years and up. So that's happening at the Sunshine Coast Rec Centre at Coromandel this weekend, which is where Mark is right now, why he's not the co-host today, and Charlie's stepped in instead. But yeah, Mark's running that from this afternoon through until Sunday. We had a bit of media coverage about that, and including talking about the significant benefits of active aging and getting outdoors no matter your age. So yeah, that was really good to see. Had a bit of coverage through the ABC and other media. So yeah, really, Charlie's just shared that interview. So Liz Ciardo from who used to work with Australian Cancer Association in Victoria. Liz works for Bolton Clark, and she did a great interview talking about the benefits of the program for people, and that includes the social connection, which is so important at the minute as far as social connection through outdoor activities. And it was really, Liz probably summarised it better than I did, having been to several of those programs. But yeah, it was really well done. So we do thank Liz for with her efforts to promote the program as well. But yeah, that's just a piece of what we're trying to do, I suppose, to get it out there. Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions or queries? I feel like I've done a lot of talking, but that happens sometimes in these sessions. Well, I'm just about done. So our next one of these sessions is Friday the 19th, so in a couple of weeks. Feel free to join us then. There's a whole heap of resources on our website. So if you're looking for any information, please check out our website. And not just about COVID-19, about all sorts of things outdoor related. So please check out the website. And a big thank you to Charlie for co-hosting with me today. And just check out Charlie's work on our social media world and also the websites. Yeah, and there's a fair bit going on in that space as well that we're looking forward to. Some wonderful work from Charlie in the next little while too. So
You're too kind.
thanks, Charlie, and thank you for helping me out today. But yeah, I guess is anyone else have any other comments or questions?
Hey, Dom, I just got a question about whether or not, given we're all variously vaccinated here in Queensland and able to gather in meetings, is there been any thought to having a Christmas event for people who are in Zooms and who can get to a location somewhere in the southeast? I know Coefficient normally has theirs, and Andrew's trying to find a date and a venue. But any ideas or is there any interest in that? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I haven't looked at doing it. We'd all have to come in with a square to put around yourselves so you'd recognise each other. Is that how it would work?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then we invariably go on in and out of mute, so it'd be good.
You could have a live virtual meeting, Dave. We could organise that, and we'd have to have tiered as well, so we all appear in grids. Mate, I haven't actually got that far at the moment. I've sort of been head down thinking about getting through what we've got for the next few weeks before Christmas sneaks up on us. But yeah, it's probably a good idea. Maybe Charlie and I and Mark might have a little chat about that next week. And that's assuming Mark's still talking to us after his big weekend at the Great Getaway, mate. But,
it's a cover story. You stressed him out by making him run the Queensland Awards again. He's on stress leave, isn't he?
I should have mentioned earlier, he was the MC of the evening and he did a great job. He as he always does. But it was actually a really good evening. But yeah, he's certainly going to deserve some time off after the Great Getaways and the awards back to back weeks. So yeah, mate, we might have a look at that and see what we can do and see if we can do that. Maybe even organise a face-to-face forum and then have a bit of a gathering or something. I haven't really.
Just a suggestion. Doesn't need to be anything super organised. I was thinking, it might be a bunch of people who might like to gather after being on Zooms for so much of the last 18 months, given it's Christmas, and just have a beer or two together. Those who can get together and who are vaccinated and all the things that you've got to do to meet in person nowadays. But yeah. And Laura, and it has to be after the 17th of December, so Laurie can drive up.
Yeah. Speaking of actually gathering, I should have mentioned earlier, the OEAQ, the Outdoor Educators Association of Queensland, are organising a Fools Forum for Far North Queensland. So that's on the 3rd and 4th of December. And that's up in Cairns, or it's on the Atherton Tablelands at Tinaroo Environmental Education Centre. So they've got that, and tickets are available for that, which are very reasonably priced at the Tinaroo Environmental Ed Centre. I think it's on the Friday, they're doing a paddling PD session on the Friday afternoon. And then the Saturday is at the Environmental Ed Centre, the forum itself. So it's called Fools, the Facilitators of Outdoor Learning. It's a very catchy title for that one. So the Fools Forum, and we had the SEQ Fools Forum a few months ago now, Dave, down at Brisbane Grammar School's centre down at Lake Maroon. And so this one's up at Lake Tinaroo, so something to do with lakes and the Fools Forums. But that's happening on the 3rd and 4th of December as well. So check it out if you do get a chance, or if you're interested. I'm trying to get up there to go there. Obviously, COVID restrictions allowing. I'm hoping to get up there and have a chat to our colleagues in North Queensland. But yeah, thank you very much. As I said, the next session's in a couple of weeks, and yeah, look forward to seeing you all then. Thanks, Peter. I hope you have a good session with the sailing and kayaking tomorrow. And we'll just sign off with look after yourself, look after others, and look after our planet. Thanks all.
And I want to say thank you, Dom. Even after it's been a little while since I've seen all of you, it's good to see you are still leading it and doing so well. So Christmas is coming. You'll be able to take a break.
Thanks,
I also want to, I thought I'd congratulate the Scenic Rim area on getting number 8 in the Lonely Planet place to visit in the world.
Yeah.
2022.
That was fabulous.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. It'll be funny when Scenic Rim takes over from Gold Coast Tourism and Sunshine Coast Tourism.
Yeah.
They can hang that on their signs. But thank you very much, everyone, and yeah, I hope you have a great weekend, and maybe speak to you in a couple of weeks, if not before.